Okay, y'all, we're live on Facebook now. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Sandra, President, Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward. I'm here today. She's back in the beginning of the show is my co-host, Narnike Pierre Grant. We have a special guest today. Jara Frantz McLawrence, one of my law school classmates. And we're going to talk about the state of the insurgency, y'all. We're going to talk about what happened on January 6th. I just got an update from Jara that about 400 people have been identified. I think they've made about 135 or so arrests already. They're all different types of charges that are being filed. We want to talk a little bit about that. So he's going to talk more about the legal side. And for me, I'm looking at it more of a perspective of, just the two Americas that we live in, there were a few people of color for some strange reason was there on January 6th. We have one arrest that have been made public, and and it seems to me already that person's already being treated consistent to what we know the way we know people of color are being treated, but just a little different from some of the other folks that I think that seem to have done some things that were just as egregious, if not more. All right, so again, Sandra Sheffer, President, Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward. We're gonna get this conversation started. I'm gonna send it off to Narnike. She's gonna do her brief intro, and then we're gonna have Jara introduce himself to us today. Looking forward to the conversation. If you're watching, share. Let people know we're going to be talking about some good stuff and things that we really do need to know about.
All right, yay! I am back. Last time we had some technical issues. Apparently, AT&T was down everywhere.
It was mad at everybody.
It was horrible. So I was stuck hostage, and it really brought things to perspective because it made you realize how dependent you are on your electronics. So that was kind of scary. But we're back, and we're going to have a great conversation. Let me take away the way of great, because what happened on January 6th wasn't great. It was just like, it was a whole hot mess. But we are going to discuss it and look at the legal side with Jara and look at the human side and the two Americas living. And when we say two Americas, we are talking about race. So I'm going to shoot it over to Jara. Please introduce yourself. Tell the people what you do, how you doing it.
Sure. So I'm Jara McLawrence. I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Fort Lauderdale. I've been practicing criminal defense now since 2003. So that's what, 17, well, it's going to be 18 years this March. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has been that long. I've tried a few cases. When I say tried a few cases, I don't mean actually take them to trial in federal court, but I've handled a few federal cases, and I've taken a bunch of state cases to trial. I mean, like, I don't know. I've represented well close to 10,000 people by now. So I've taken quite a few cases to trial here in local state court.
Nice.
Yeah. And you were at the public defender's office in Broward County, right? That's when you started, and then you went.
That's a whole funny story as how I got to be a public defender. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't actually start off there. I started actually doing construction litigation law. I did that for 2 years, and I made really good money coming straight out of UF. But I was so bored, and I disliked it so much that I left and joined the PD's office. But like I said, that's a story within itself as to how I got to the PD's office. But yeah, I started off at the PD's office and opened my own practice in 2006.
Okay, yeah, I'm a former public defender too, but not in Broward. I was in Sarasota, Florida. So
wow.
he went there and loved it. I got there and I'm like, well, what you putting them in jail for? Like, I mean, Kmart got all their stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I swear, people like, why'd you leave? I was like, I can't do this. I'm like, you really go put them in jail? Like, Kmart got all their stuff back. Like, why do they have to serve 5 months in the county jail for $234 worth of stuff, and Kmart didn't lose anything? This lady got kids, and they were like, we don't care. She tried to steal this stuff out of Kmart. So I guess I didn't have the heart for it, and yeah, so I ran away from criminal defense work in the public defender's office at jail time. But luckily, we're in an era of like a lot of criminal justice reform, and I'm happy to see it, and I think it's long overdue. Because really, if someone, they try to, she was trying to steal school clothes for her kids. I'm sympathetic. But to take her away from her children for 5 months for some $234 worth of stuff that Kmart got to keep, something has to be done about it. There has to be a different way to handle that that's more equitable and just more humane, for the person who, tried to steal the stuff and her children, that, her children should be taken into consideration. So, I digress, but yeah. Defense work is that is definitely God's work there.
You froze for a couple of seconds there. But that problem there, that problem there is twofold, Sandra. And we were talking about it before we got on Facebook Live. But that, number one, it lies in the prosecutor's office, because police officers are going to be police officers. They're going to arrest whoever they're going to arrest for whatever reason, whether it's bias or not. They're going to arrest. And it's up to the prosecutors to determine whether or not that person is going to be charged and what they're going to be charged for. So that's number one. And then as a backstop, it's up to the judge. The sentencing is ultimately the decision of the judge.
Yes.
So, if we're allowing these people to come into our churches, to appear at our events, and to blatantly BS us and lie to us, and then we promote them and we elect them to these positions, and then when they're in those positions, we don't hold them accountable. Well, what do you expect?
Yeah, and that's, you're absolutely right about that, in terms of like those decisions were made by the prosecutors and the judges in that area, because the judge that was on that was in that courtroom, he that's what he did. Like, for instance, if he put everybody on probation, and we know everybody can't do probation, but if you wouldn't do probation, he said, if you're not on probation, you have to agree to significant jail. And significant jail for him was 10 months. So no matter what it was, it could have been like reckless driving, whatever, like a misdemeanor, like DUIs, I don't think is a good thing. But if it was a petty theft or disorderly conduct, whatever it was, he was gonna max you on those charges. He was going to absolutely try to max you on those charges, which is
terrible.
Definitely, yeah. It was the judge, and they're the ones that continue to get reelected. And that's another thing that we talk about too, is that people need to be more involved in the people that are running for office. And even if they get appointed or if they get elected, we got to pay attention to their record. And if they're not doing good work, we should not be afraid to vote them out of office. And I'm also the person who thinks that nobody should run unopposed. So none of these judges, I don't care how good they think they are, they should never be able to run unopposed.
Because it's if they run unopposed, it's a mandate on their performance while they were in office.
Right.
It's saying, this person did a great job. We have no issues with them. And there are a few people like that, but
I know, Jara, you're very strong and opinionated about down ballot candidates and how important it is to be in the fall.
I've challenged 2 judges. Now, while I didn't win either of those races, I did get rid of both of those judges.
Yeah, and one of them shouldn't have been able to run in the first place, but I digress.
I didn't challenge those judges because I thought they were good people. And as you guys know, as you may know, Sandra, the Florida bar, or the rules of the Florida bar, dictate that lawyers can't, for lack of a better phrase, lawyers can't badmouth judges. So you can't go up there while you're campaigning and say, this is a bad judge, right? You can't say that. But I got my point across while I was campaigning. I didn't play that I'm Jara McLawrence and I'm running because I'm for, I believe it's a people's, I didn't do that. I just talked, when I directly pointed out that my opponent was given harsher sentences for certain types of offenses to certain types of people, I pointed out the facts.
Yep. So, and rightly so. Rightly so. And people are becoming more and more aware of it, because this last election cycle, we participated in a lot of panels and watched them, and those judges had to own up to their record. A couple of them, some of the things, one of the decisions that one of them in particular, a decision that he made that cost him to leave in the first place, and he thought he could come back and try to get it. It came up again, and he had to defend it, and he really couldn't defend it. So, he wasn't able to win his seat. And another one in a close, one of the other races, there's a new judge on the bench. He was in a really close race, and that judge had done some things that he needed to explain, and his explanations weren't sufficient, and people put him off the bench, which I think he was surprised by. We're not gonna call any names, but those who know who we're talking about.
But he's not a judge anymore, so it doesn't matter. Now he's just a lawyer, so we can call his name. We could say he's a dirtbag, as now the Florida bar isn't protecting him anymore.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and his feelings was hurt because I was there at the end of the recount, and he was like, I can't believe this. Him and some of his friends, they were just mad.
He was quite salty. He was
not happy about that.
Well, you know what we say in the Caribbean.
We just
that's what we say.
We suck our teeth. We don't care.
That's true. So we're gonna go ahead and transition to the insurrection.
Yes.
What's the other word that they were using besides insurrection? What was the other words that they were using?
Sedition.
Sedition, yes. A coup d'etat, yes.
Straight up coup d'etat.
And they all, fit. So whoever want to use which term they want to use, but so let's kind of dive into that and have a conversation. So this question's for everyone. Did just watching it, and if you got the tail end and you didn't watch it when it was starting, because I watched it before they even stormed the Capitol. It was just on TV. I really didn't. It didn't look to me like that's what they were trying to do. It just looked like they were protesting, right? Once it all happened, whatever, did you think that people were capable of doing that in this country?
Hell yeah, I did. You know what? I wasn't watching on January 6th for any. This is what I turned in on January 6th to see. I expected this, so this is what I tuned in to see. So yeah, of course I expected it. Had it not happened, I would have been surprised. I expected some sort of foolishness to go on because it had been
that level of foolishness, though.
Yes,
that level of foolishness.
I actually expected there to be more death. I expected there to be bombs and all these kind of things. That's what I expected.
They had bombs. They just didn't get to blow them up.
So that's what I expected. That's what I mean. That had been the discussion. That had been what the president of the United States, the then president of the United States, was fomenting. So I fully expected it. You and we again. This is another topic we discussed before we came on, and before I spoke with you, Sandra, I didn't know there were Black people who were surprised by this. I mean, I fully expected it. My family was expecting it. We were all sitting there like waiting to see, what are these fools gonna do? And they did not disappoint.
They absolutely didn't. The only one didn't believe. Sandra, you were probably the only one that, because I expected it too. But you were like
that was, because I have to tell you, because I was not one of the people that saw it live. I was teaching the class, and Narnike was texting me, and I'm like, girl, and then I get up, and then I see a picture of people on a wall, right? And I'm thinking it's fake. I'm like, wait, what's this? Like, what's on the wall? And it was people climbing the wall. I'm like, no, this can't be. I was like, this isn't real. This is like fake. They're like, no, this actually happened. I have to tell you, like, I knew something would happen, but I did not. Not like that. That was just so bizarre for them to go in. I mean, to the point where the lady gets shot because she's trying to go through some window, and the officer just got to put a cap in her. I mean, that was like amazing.
Listen, I fully expected that type of behavior. I fully expected them to storm that building. I fully expected them to get to the Senate floor and the House floor. I fully expected them to go into those people's offices and trash it. I fully expected all of that. And I do agree with Jara. I fully expected to have more people die. The little 5 people that died, let me not say little, but the 5 people that did die is a little bit surprising to me. I thought it would have been more. And I fully expect them to act that way. It wasn't surprising to me at all.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just wanted to also say that I fully expected that there was going to be involvement. When I say involvement, I mean the people who were rioting. I expected members of those people to be members of the police department, members of the military.
Yeah.
So none of that stuff was
HR
surprising to me.
The diversity and training person,
school board members, teachers.
What I will say that surprised me are the 2 Black guys that I saw. That surprised me.
Up to 3. I think
was it 3?
It was 3 of them, right?
Okay.
There was one that was in the room, and then there's a picture of him, and you could tell he was like,
He wasn't shocked.
He was like, how I got here, right? Like, I think that was a moment of reckoning that happened while it was happening, and he was stunned. And there was another guy that was kind of outside too. And then there's a third person who actually got caught in charge, which I don't
know who you didn't see?
Same person. Black women.
Yes, exactly. You ain't see no black women in that stupidness. Shoot.
Yeah, we don't
like heck no.
We don't know. That's not something we do. We don't.
Somebody about to talk into that, you know.
You say Women's March, we there and we do our jobs properly. And then we move it. We keep it moving. But that kind of freckle
saving America's morality. Yeah, y'all are there.
Yeah, we'll do that. We don't show up.
Yeah, y'all are
we
good
don't
for
keep
that.
them from electing like pedophiles to Senate. We'll stop y'all from doing that. You know, like people can't go to the mall and you know y'all want to make them y'all state senator. We'll be like, nah. We're not gonna let that happen. You know, we'll do those types of things. You know, people showed out to get the right folks to get Mitch McConnell from being the Senate Majority Leader. So yeah, we'll take care of those things, but we're not about to
storm the Capitol.
We too busy. We too busy.
Nobody that much.
Yeah, but we too busy doing the foundational stuff. Like we too busy. We just don't have time for the the foolishness. Now for the white women, the privilege they have.
The 55%.
That was more than the 55%. Sis.
This lady took a private jet to come and storm the Capitol. Like, lady, what do you not have in your life?
If you got a private jet and you could pay for the gas, for a private jet. And she was mad she didn't get no pardon. She's like, Lil Wayne got one. You know what I'm saying?
What about
Kwame? You know what I'm saying?
What about the school board member that chartered the whole bus?
I've got one. Kodak Black got one. She's like, where's my pardon?
Yeah. What about that school board member who chartered a whole bus? The Virginia school board member woman, the female white woman, chartered a whole bus and drove a whole bunch of bag of them down there to Washington D.C. So and yeah, she's waiting on her pardon too. But the point is, I wasn't surprised. I know you weren't really surprised, Sandra, but you didn't think that they were going to take it to that extreme.
I think it was going to be on that level. And then they had an elected official. The guy had just gotten his job, during the last election, and he's out there, protesting, and then he had to resign, and then he gets arrested in front of his grandma. I don't know, it was Pennsylvania. It was one of
West Virginia.
It was West Virginia again. Okay, yeah. One of the elected officials from West Virginia just got his gig, and he over here clowning. And what was also more incredible about what was happening was they were live streaming the stuff on social media. I'm like,
just tell them where you at.
It was acceptable. It was acceptable. I mean, the president of the United States condoned and incited this behavior. I mean, to me, if I'm attending a function and the president of the United States tells me, let's all go to the Broward County Courthouse, I'm going to the Broward County Courthouse. I mean, it's the president of the United States, right?
Yeah. It has to be okay because he said it, right?
Yeah. he is the top law enforcement officer in the land.
So what do you say to those who say he didn't, and what he did was just have a regular speech? And if those people took that speech and interpreted it the way that they wanted to interpret it, that was their
go kill Mike Pence and kidnap Nancy Pelosi.
Right, but he talks about fighting. He sent them to the Capitol, and the strict language of the federal offense of insurrection says whoever incites in any rebellion or insurrection against the United States. That's what it says. It says whoever incites. Clearly, that's what he was doing. He was inciting.
So do you think that now the Senate has the impeachment articles, and this is the Constitution that you're reading, right, Jara? So based on that alone, is that not enough for them to get, what is it that they do in the Senate? They get convictions? What is it?
Right. They want to remove him, right?
Right. Isn't that enough just based strictly on the language that he indeed, in fact, and it's on video, because we have his speech on video, that they can go ahead and impeach him based on that?
They can impeach him based on that. They can impeach him based on sedition, because sedition is even easier to prove than insurrection, because sedition just says that two or more persons who conspire to delay the execution of any law of the United States or by force takes or possesses any property of the United States. That's it. That's all you require for sedition. So
they delayed the counting of the
exactly
of the election,
votes,
right? The certified election.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but isn't certifying the election just a formality? Is that really considered? And I'm saying all of these.
That has to be done for the person to actually be president, right? That's why he wanted them to stop it from happening. Is that the understanding?
Yes, exactly. And that was his intent, was to stop it from happening.
And so for those who support him, I want them to understand, because some of them may get a glimpse of this video, that the question would be, well, isn't that just a formality? Because they keep throwing it out there. Well, the Republicans do, on the Senate. Oh, just a formality. You don't need to, once it's certified in other states or whatever the case is. So they did delay. So doing that certification is part of the procedure in order for the president-elect to be confirmed as a president, correct?
And sworn in on January 20th. I think it's part of the process that's baked in.
Part of the process. And then that process was then delayed, and that is considered sedition, correct?
Well, let me just say that I don't know the political aspect of it. Right. I do know what the legal elements are of the offense of sedition and of the offense of insurrection. And it seems to me that those elements are met by Donald Trump's speech. It's also it's a combination of things. It's not just his speech alone on January 6th. Mm-hmm. It's also his interference with the Georgia elections by calling Rafstetter, I forget his name.
State, not sure what
his name Secretary of State of Georgia, mm-hmm. and asking him to find those votes for him and other actions he took. So it's not just his sole speech on January 6th, but it's a culmination of everything that he did and his speech on January 6th. To me, it clearly establishes sedition and insurrection. But like I said before we got onto this Facebook Live, I think people are I don't know that there's going to be a non-Black female that will have the backbone to prosecute Donald Trump in a criminal court. That's my personal feelings. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think anyone else has that kind of as the Mexicans say, they don't have those cojones to do that.
Ooh, so we got to get a Black AG in Florida in 22, a Black female AG in Florida 22. Who can we we encourage?
Then we have to support her, because she's going to get there and she's going to be under attack every single day. And we can't back down, and we can't disappear. We got to support her, 110%.
110%.
And with these kind of dudes that we have in our current mix.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
That's why we love.
Let's talk about the brothers. We don't want them to say we out here bashing men, so we're not gonna say anything. We're gonna just let a man speak about other men, right?
There we go. That's why we love us. The brothers said it. That's why we love us some Letitia James. Come on, Letitia.
Yeah.
But remember, she's an attorney general of New York, so the worst she can do is file civil suit.
Right.
The person who can go after Donald Trump criminally is Cy Vance.
Cy Vance, yeah. Right.
But I'm telling you right now, I just don't see it. I don't see anyone outside of a Black female having the backbone that it takes to go ahead and prosecute Donald Trump criminally. I just don't see it.
So realistically,
maybe they could surprise me. I don't know.
So realistically, for those who are tuning in, realistically, do you believe that Trump will be impeached in the Senate?
No.
Yeah, I don't think, because they need to get 17 people, 17 besides the 50 Democrats to say yes, to go ahead and agree with the impeachment articles that came from the House of Representatives. But mind you, and the reason why we don't think this is going to happen, because yesterday, 45 of them said that it was unconstitutional for the House to even bring up these charges against him because he's no longer president, right? Mind you, they could have started the trial while he was president, and they decided not to do that, right? And now there's this unconstitutional, he ain't even the president no more. Why are you trying to impeach the dude that's not the president? So
but again,
45 of them said this was unconstitutional, which is not true. It's not true. But 45 of them signed off and said it wasn't.
Why do the Democrats keep falling for the okie doke? Like, how did you not know that this was going to be something that they would do? Right?
Exactly.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many times you gonna fall for the okie doke, man? I mean,
now now it's not even about like if they falling for the okie doke. Now it's like, are we just doing this for show? Because that's a waste of my time. Like, why are we wasting people's time? You know, like if there's nothing that's gonna come out of that, why are we wasting the time?
Well, something's gonna come out of it, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, he still got impeached. Whether or not he's gonna get removed, I mean, he's already removed, so they can't really remove him because the people voted.
Well, we don't want him to run anymore. I don't want him to be able to run anymore.
So yeah, so that's what they're hoping that they'll negotiate is like some sort of censure, or they'll come to some sort of agreement that be like, homeboy, just say you're not gonna run no more. Agree to
but
this.
It's not just that. It's not just this guy is a traitor. That's what he is. He's a traitor to the United States, but he is going to be receiving a pension.
Yes.
Is it 250K?
Yes.
I think it's. Is it? I thought it was like the whole 400. No, it's 250.
No, it's half of that.
He gets like service and another $1 million to just kind of maintain who he is.
So it's not that you know. So someone like him supposedly, according to him, which you can't believe anything that comes out of his mouth, but supposedly he doesn't need the money, right? But
he won't it.
I mean, but still, I mean, why would you are Benedict Arnold, you are a traitor to this country. Mm-hmm. Why should you receive any benefit at all from your traitorous acts?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Because I know you might be right with the 250,000, but I know he gets like $1 million in incentive and stuff to maintain, and he gets Secret Service. And I think he also signed something where all his kids could continue to get into. You know what I mean? You know. That type of stuff. And that's costing people money. That's costing the taxpayers money. I mean, I do a project with homeless folks like once a month. I'm like, you know what kind of stuff you can do with $1 million? I mean, we wouldn't have people living under the highway, right? Like, why should he get it? You know what I'm saying? So I'm all for like taking that money and doing something else with it.
Right. There's a level of it's just disturbing to know that someone like him reaps all the benefits, but then left a trail of just disaster that the next administration is going to have to spend, if not all of that first term to rectify. It's disturbing to me. And what's even more disturbing is the fact that you have a group of people who justify, I was almost going to curse, who justifies the behavior. Mm-hmm. Like just justified the entire ball of mess that was Donald Trump and continues to do so. Mm-hmm. And it's not even like loyalists where they were friends from the beginning all the time. You're talking about Ted Cruz, and he called his wife ugly and demeaned this man on public television. This man is like Botsy and Bench with him. Like they just don't want to, he just doesn't see no wrong. And I just think that is it really that he sees no wrong, or he just trying to make sure he could get some of them 73 million votes when he runs in 2024?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter, and I think that at some point, we here in South Florida, we have to start talking about the Batista Cuban element that we have in South Florida, and we got to start addressing that. We have to start exposing that. And we have to start explaining to people what are Batista Cubans. And because it's not all the Cubans in South Florida, but certainly guys like Rubio and other people who have benefited mightily from the whole Cuban embargo business and the wet foot, dry foot business. People are making money hand over fist down there for extolling those values. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we here in South Florida have to come to a reckoning, and we have to address that issue and expose that issue for what it is.
Absolutely.
That's a topic for a whole other day.
Yeah, that's definitely a different conversation, and it's a needed conversation, because this really is a time of reckoning on so many levels for so many things, right? So there are a lot of things, you know, especially 2020. I mean, if you didn't have time to do anything last year, you had time to think, right? And if you didn't have time to think, that's because you ain't want to think about the stuff that was going on in your life, because you were forced to like sit down, stand still, whatever it is, and just kind of just kind of think about like how you're living in your life, what it is that you want to do. But then in terms of the reckoning, for the folks who were able to always say like, oh no, I don't see why Black people are complaining. You know, the cops don't do nothing to y'all. What y'all talking about? Whatever. We had some extremely high profile, very visible, right, instances of this happening. You know, we talk about George Floyd. I mean, for you to see, and I didn't watch the whole 8 minutes and 46 seconds of that video. I couldn't take it, right? But for you to just know that a cop stood on a dude's had a knee on a guy's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds while people were watching and he didn't flinch, for you to act like, oh, well, I don't know what Black people are talking about, that's just crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of it, right? You know, the Breonna Taylor, you know, people could try to, you know, I was going to curse again. I'm glad I didn't. You know, you can try to act like that's okay. You know, she had an old dope dealer boyfriend and that's why the cops was in her house. And, you know, if the other boyfriend, her other gun-toting boyfriend didn't have no gun, she wouldn't be dead. So you could try to find ways to blame all that on somebody else but the police officers that killed this girl that was sleeping in her house, and they ain't had no business to be there. But at least with George Floyd, you can't manipulate that one and act like that, you know, that there wasn't nothing wrong about that. Particularly when you find out that it started over like maybe a fake $20, even if it was a real $20, that was still only $20 worth of stuff that nobody should lose their life for, right? So we had that. So then we're gonna fast forward and we're coming to January 6th, right? So you know how people of color, they go into these, like, you know, you go in for job interviews, you have these interactions with police officer, and it's uncomfortable and it's real tense. And there's a lot of times you can't figure out how to verbalize what it is, but you know that that person is just treating you some kind of way because of your color of your skin or whatever, right? These people in power. And you're trying to explain that. They're like, no, you're just making it up. You don't understand. You're exaggerating, right? But then when you see January 6th happen and you find out that police officers are there, HR department people are there, school board members are there, school teachers are there, the diversity person of the New York Police Department is there, all of these people, they had the nerves to go to an event like that. And now you're going to tell me that their interaction with people of color in their workspace was okay? It's not okay. So even if you try to act like all that stuff was happening in my head, January 6th was a manifestation of like, you know what? Yo, those people must really be going into those interviews and in those spaces and having this experience that's extremely uncomfortable, because those, and the other thing that a lot of white people realize is like, but I know John, he's my neighbor. I would have never thought, right? So he was able to like trick y'all, right? He, she, whoever was able to trick y'all and act like he was this good dude when he was interacting with you, but his interaction with people of color was extremely dangerous and, literally standing on a person's neck, but not in plain sight. So January 6th brought that. So there's a whole lot of reckoning. So that's that. And now we're starting to see who's getting charged, what they're getting charged with. I'm like, thank goodness there's a whole bunch of white people that did this stuff, so we don't have to worry about a whole bunch of black people getting charged. But I do want to talk about the one black boy that got charged that I heard about
Yeah.
yesterday. So I think Jara was able to look up the charges, and and he was one of the few that wasn't given bond. I mean, I guess I could understand he homeless, he ain't got nowhere to go. So how you gonna let him out on bond?
Before you do all of that, talk about what it is. Tell him, talk about who he is.
He's gonna talk about that part. I'm gonna just talk about like how it just and so he don't really have nowhere to go. So where you gonna send a letter? All right, maybe, right? But then they talk about the fact that he has mental illness, right? I'm like, okay. So if he got mental illness, this dude should be evaluated. He should be in some sort of psych facility somewhere. He should not be in your jail, right? And the fact that he has mental illness would probably explain that he really didn't fully understand and appreciate. I mean, once you do an evaluation, you can assess what type of mental illness he has. But to me, that's already an indication that he couldn't really fully appreciate and assess what it is that was really about to go down, right? But then, he's getting like, they're like, bro, 5 charges, most of them felonies, you can't get out. And there's one thing, Jaro will talk about this. They could have charged him one way, but they're charging him in a way that enhances the penalties, so let's talk about that, because that's that two Americas. That's that two Americas that we're starting to see.
And it's compared to the young
lady who stole a laptop, the one that took the private jet over there, the dude that was at Nancy Pelosi desk with his foot up, that a judge in Arkansas tried to give him only
from?
a $5,000 bond. The one that walked out with the podium that had a whole doctor wife, and he, his bond was $20,000 and he got out. Yeah, against all that. Let's
So
talk against
you
all
have,
the people.
so many to choose from.
Pick one. Just all,
All right, well,
all that.
Well, before we get there, you said a lot in the lead up to that. So I do want to touch on a couple of things that you said before we get to that. Number one, I want to, when we talk about Breonna Taylor, again, this goes back to what I was saying about, but for Black women, we would be in the real life version of The Handmaid's Tale, because who is the Kentucky Attorney General who not only failed to get these officers properly indicted, but then lied about it.
Lied.
Mm-hmm.
Then lied about it.
Oh, liar.
Right? I mean, and this dude is what?
He Black.
Bro.
Right. Exactly.
Black.
Right. And then you also talked about people not believing Black folk when we say that we're treated differently. And this goes back again. I'm going to bring this back again to the local politics here, because as in the local courts here, there have been umpteen times, countless times when I myself, other defense lawyers, private attorneys or public defenders have argued to a judge that the stop of a Black person in a particular vehicle was it was a pretextual stop.
Right. Absolutely.
So it had nothing to do with
the tail light being out,
a turn signal or light. No, it had everything to do with the fact that they were a Black person driving in that car at that time of night in that neighborhood. That's the only reason they stopped. Mm-hmm. And when you make that argument, you can literally see the judge roll their eyes.
Yep.
You can literally see them roll their eyes, right? So as you said, now, we would hope in 2021 that after all of these things that have happened and everyone has been witness to it, that would change. But I don't think so. Because I don't think that we hold these people who again come to our churches, who our own pastors pass off on us. We don't hold them to account. We don't hold them to account for their actions. We don't hold them accountable. And then if we don't hold them accountable, either we're voting for them or we're not voting at all. So they get their seats back again.
They run unopposed.
Right. So I just wanted to. You mentioned those two things, and I didn't want to let those things just slip by, because
those are
I'm
real.
telling you, man, I don't know what some of these brothers are drinking nowadays, man. But cats like Cameron in Kentucky. Who's his mother?
He got set up. He absolutely. Well, he kind of accepted the setup, but he got set up because the prosecutor in the city, I don't know if is it Louisville, Kentucky, could have prosecuted that case, but said, "Oh no, since I have a close relationship with the police department, I'm gonna recuse myself," right? And then the other thing too, the other thing that Cameron really banked on, and he got, they threw him under the bus, was that usually grand jury transcripts are never made public, right? So the lies that he told in that room, he thought was going to stay in that room, right? That's really what he was banking on. And then the governor, who was a Democrat, was like, go ahead and release him, right? So go ahead and release him. The jurors was like, they didn't hear this part, right? So he
didn't get set up. He didn't get set up. There's no setup if you don't lie.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? If you don't lie, there's no setup.
Had his back. He really thought them people had his back, and then he found out they sure didn't.
And it wasn't a Black juror that started this impeachment process against him. It was a white juror.
Yeah.
Like you
we didn't know about that. What does man talk about? We didn't do our part. He didn't tell us nothing about no Breonna Taylor.
I guess being married to Mitch McConnell grandbaby don't mean nothing around here in these streets.
Yeah. So
I guess it don't matter. I'm gonna throw that right there. Let that sizzle in your spirit. Let it sizzle in your spirit.
We have some people that say all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
They're not.
He got set up. He didn't
get set up.
Oh, he didn't get set up. Okay. I was trying to
get set up.
Nice.
He didn't get set up.
He didn't get set up.
He felt
He enjoyed. He took it in. He knew.
He thought he was in the club. He thought
exactly.
He thought he was in the club.
Exactly.
So now
So
he's not in the club and he can't come to the barbecue, bro. What you gonna do?
so talking about your boy now, the dude who got arrested, and
the one,
the
the
one that
homeless
has
one with the mental health issues, that's
the
about to
mental health
catch all
issues.
that heat for like having that bat.
Yeah, so I mean, that was the thing, is that they claimed that he had a baseball bat and he was striking federal officers. So he's looking at federal felony assault charges, and if he was looking at the regular felony assault charges, he'd be looking at up to 10 years. If he had been charged with misdemeanor assault charges, they are federal misdemeanor charges, such as like some of these that you've heard about are misdemeanors, like violent entry, disorderly conduct, assault just by itself, simple assault. Those would have been misdemeanor offenses. He'd be looking at less than a year in jail.
The trespassing like the other people, he didn't get that one. No trespass for him.
Remember, they're claiming that he used the bat. And because they're claiming that he used the bat and he struck federal officers, he's looking at up to 20 years.
But where he get the bat from? I thought they were using poles and flag poles. So they're saying that he brought in the bat. Wow.
Yeah, they're saying. I mean, that's what they claim, is that he had a bat. So.
The man has mental illness and he's homeless.
Right. So what can happen is he can be evaluated while he's in custody, and certainly if the evaluation comes back and it says the things that you said, Sandra, that he has some sort of mental health issue and he couldn't appreciate the actions that he took, then that could be brought back again before the judge. It shouldn't matter that it shouldn't matter. Like, homelessness should not be a factor or should not be a strong factor as given strong weight in determining whether someone gets bond or not, or whether someone is released or not. It's not supposed to matter, right? Because for instance, here in Broward courts, we've had a few judges that I consider to be, it's not that I'm considering them to be good judges, but I think they made the right decision. Because what used to happen is that the pretrial release services would make the argument, well, this person is homeless, Your Honor. We can't monitor that person. And we've actually had a few judges here in Broward County say, well, no, you are going to monitor that person. If you have to go out to the bridge, wherever it is that this person stays, that's what you're going to have to do. Mm-hmm. Or if you're going to have to set a particular date where you're going to meet them by the library, that's what you're going to have to do. But I'm not going to keep this person in custody because you don't want to go and supervise them. You go and supervise someone who has a house.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They
have tents in Overtown. You can go to his tent, and see if he's there, or his little.
Of course, the problem with homeless folk, and I've represented a lot of them, is sometimes a lot of them don't know what date it is. So if you tell them that they have to appear at the library on February 3rd, well, it's not like they're walking around with a watch that tells them the date, or they have what I'm saying? So.
So the duplicity of this country in terms of how a Black defendant and a white defendant gets treated, have you, as attorneys, have you guys seen same exact charges, same exact crime with two different races, and do you see the difference in terms of how they're charged?
Always. I mean, I saw that before I was a lawyer, so I don't even,
Well, being as an attorney, you can see the identical, how identical the charges are, so you guys can look at it and see it on paper.
Let me give you a great example. Let me give you a great example. I think about 2 years ago or something of that nature, we had a police officer. I believe he was with Sunrise, if I'm not mistaken. And he punched a homeless person, or he punched a homeless person and slammed them on the ground. And one of his two actions, the police officer's actions, resulted in that person breaking their orbital bone. So, of course, but this would be an aggravated battery because you cause serious physical injury to the person.
Injury, yeah.
So he was not charged with that's a second degree felony where you're looking up to 15 years. So he was not charged with aggravated battery. I think that he was charged with the lesser felony battery, which is a third degree felony. And he's looking at up to 5 years in prison, right? Instead of the aggravated battery. So that's number one. he was also charged with falsifying a police report. He went to trial in front of a judge here in Broward County named Casey. Dan Casey is his name, and Dan Casey is still a judge. And I actually went to the trial. I wanted to observe because there was a particular defense. He's a defense attorney, is very well known, very, very well renowned. And I wanted to see his jury selection process. And so I went there and I watched parts of the trial. I did not sit throughout the whole trial. I watched parts of the trial, the parts I was interested in seeing. And the jury rejected everything that the defense had to present. The jury convicted him on both counts, right? On the felony battery and on the falsifying the police record, which I think was a misdemeanor, was the way they charged it. So what did Judge Casey do?
What did he do?
So this is a violent felony offense. Mm-hmm. First thing Judge Casey did was he allowed the defendant to be released pending sentencing. So that has two effects. Number one, it puts the prosecution on notice that I'm not gonna put this dude in prison.
In jail?
Right. So, and the other thing is, what I told the new and incoming public defender, Gordon Weeks of Broward County, is, dude, you need to find out how many people of color who appeared in front of Judge John Casey got the same type of treatment. And specifically look at how many people of color who were not charged with a violent offense.
Right.
They were charged with a non-violent offense.
Right.
Who were found guilty were given an opportunity to leave pending sentencing. Absolutely. And then when the officer comes, when the former officer, the thug really comes back for sentencing, he gets sentenced to, I think he gave him a sentence of 4 years of probation and a special.
Wait, what?
Yes, 4 years of probation, and a special condition is that he serves 1 weekend a year in jail.
After the jury threw
convicted him on both counts. So what we need to do is two things. Is one, the people who are in this mix all the time, and they know this and they're intimately familiar with this, are the public defenders. So I implore Gordon Weeks and his office, and I talked to Gordon about this already. I want to follow it up with a letter, and perhaps we as a community could do that, to ask him to keep stats, especially on Judge Casey, because we want to know how people of color are treated, who are similar situated, or who have less offenses, how they're treated in front of his in his courtroom. Mm-hmm. And then number two, what was number two? So yeah, so that's it. There's a number two, but it left my mind. I'll remember it as we continue talking about it.
Well,
so no, let me ask another question. The victim that broke his, or what color was that homeless person? The victim in that case.
I don't think that person was black. I don't think that person was a black person.
So that, and the fact that they weren't black, that also makes it, that also something, right? Because if it was black, you wonder if he would have ever even been charged, right? So that's one thing, right? So like, depending on who the victim is, it determines whether or not a person's going to get charged or not, right?
So he was caught on video. So that's what did him in, was that he was caught on video.
His own body cam or somebody else's?
No, so that it was at a convenience store, like maybe at a gas station, and the overhead camera caught him. So that's how they knew he falsified his police report. So not only did they commit the offense, but then he tried to cover it up by lying about it in his police report. The jury, I think that the jury did not buy it. They convicted him on both counts. And then you see the type of slap on the wrist he gets from Judge Casey. Now that's not an issue. I don't mind that Judge Casey did that. My issue is, what does he do when a person of color is in front of him on either similar offenses or less serious offenses? Mm-hmm. Do they get the benefit of that? They did get the same benefit of the doubt. That's what I want to know. And if they don't, why don't they? Or the second point I was trying to make is, all those black preachers and pastors and elected officials and whomever that invited Casey into their neighborhoods, they need to step up. And once they get those statistics from the public defender's office, they need to call them up. Be like, hey, what's going on here?
You can't be doing this. You can't keep your job and behave this way. Yeah,
we want to know what's the deal. Like, why aren't our people getting the same treatment in front of for you that you're giving to this violent thug?
Right. Because one of the things they always say is like, even when the insurrectionists say, well, what if they were black? And people, they're like, we're not telling you that you should have shot them. We're just telling you that you shouldn't shoot us, right? So at the end of the day, Judge, if you don't want to send this man to jail because you think his life has all this value and you don't want to ruin his life, don't be ruining black people's lives either. You know? Like, they put you in jail, give you some ridiculous bond that you can't pay. And there are folks, like, if they miss like 1 week of work or one paycheck, that completely disrupts their life. They cannot afford this stuff, right? So we're like, okay, if you think that man's life has value and you don't want to ruin it because he going to prison for body slamming some homeless dude, don't ruin somebody else's life too. That's gonna, not only are their life affected, the life of their children are affected, and it's extremely disruptive, and it causes all of this harm. That's what we really asking for you to do. You want to be nice, just go ahead and be nice to everybody, like that type of thing.
I don't think anything's going to really change unless we have legislation behind all these issues in terms of.
But that starts with voting in the right kind of people, right? You gotta be careful to vote in.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that Jara, you mentioned, I was listening in terms of the judge and the police officer, is because he's a police officer, correct?
Jara?
He was a police officer. Okay. Right. So there goes another thing in terms of, so the two Americas we live in, right? Black people are just, we inundate the police, the prison system. So much so we make majority of the population. And I know there is some sort of legislation for that, which is a weak legislation. I can't remember the name of it on top of my head now. But now we see that the Biden administration is doing all these executive orders, right? Executive orders are great, but if it's not followed behind a legislation and it's codified by both houses, it really doesn't matter, right?
Because for the time that the president is in office, and then when the next one comes in, they could just reverse. Right. Pretty much what Biden is doing is reversing a lot of the Trump nonsense, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Complain about executive orders, but at this point, he really had no choice because the man just signed so many that were just insane, right? That the only way to kind of just start moving forward is to sign like 30 orders in the first week of work,
And I respect that, and I understand that. I just think that the more important ones, the ones that we keep revisiting over and over again, because there was one that Biden talked about that he was trying to do at the end with the Obama administration, at the end of that administration, and they never had a chance to do it. And then they're doing another executive order in reference to that. These reoccurring issues should be in legislation rather than they keep doing these executive orders all the time on the reoccurring ones, that is, right?
That's the prison was one, and I know DACA for sure is
right. And those are the two that right. And so especially with the private prison, the executive orders are a great first step. But one of the things that Sandra explained to me it was on a federal level. Is that correct, Sandra? It wasn't for the private
federal prisons, not state prisons, which a lot of them are operated by private companies. Geo Group and CCCS. Those private prisons, right? And even with just like not allowing them to operate the jail, it's a lot more other things that those private industries are doing. We were talking about the phone, like just the what it costs to make a phone call from jail. Right? Mm-hmm. Private entities like own those things, right? The food that's provided to the jail, there's a private industry that has a contract to do that. And they're all about their profit. So they're feeding folks like straight garbage, right? So let's talk about food, right? So one of the dudes, the one that had like the bullhorn thing on his head, he's some kind of vegan, organic eating person, right?
He's the head of the Proud Boys. And he's the head of the Proud Boys.
Damn vegans.
And he's always on a hunger strike unless y'all feed me my organic, panoramic, whatever kind of meal it was. And then the judge signed an order and said, yep, you got to feed him organic food, right? So I had a client, this was years ago, that went on a hunger strike. They put that man in a hospital and and gave him a feeding tube. They're like, well, you think you about to, they let him starve for a good minute. And then he was getting to the point where he was like so weak, like he couldn't walk. They took him to the hospital, and you know what court order they got was to feed him, put a feeding tube in him, right? But this guy, within like a matter of days of getting arrested for storming the Capitol, get a judge to sign an order that he gets organic food in jail. Like, your thoughts, Mr. McLawrence?
The duplicity of the United States of America.
I mean,
make it make sense. Is that what you said?
He gets organic food. I can't afford organic food, and I work a lot. So I'm gonna storm the Capitol and then order them to buy it for me now. Like that's what we doing.
And it's not we can make these nuances about this and throw a little joke here and there, but the seriousness of the situation is that people of color, period, talking about the Asians, the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, the Black people of color, period, in the penal code system, they don't get treated the same, okay? And it's just, and I think we were talking to Jara, and I was just saying that it's some cultures don't think that it applies to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Black people, we already know that it applies to us, right? It apparently there is a hierarchy. The lighter you are, the more you feel that you've assimilated with this so-called, what you call it here. But the point I'm trying to make is that you storm the Capitol as a person of color, you're sitting in jail and there's no way for you to get out. You storm the Capitol as a white woman who steals property and you're home with your mama, right?
On the internet.
Oh yeah. Or and you can even talk about, what was the kid that came all the way, moved across state lines and shot 2 people during a Black Lives Matter protest?
Rittenhouse or something, or
Rittenhouse, right. What got $1 million bail, got his bail, and then you're supposed to be awaiting trial, right? So you're supposed to be laying low and kind of getting yourself together, but you out drinking with KKK people
and your mama
and your mama, and so and there's no repercussions for that. Basically, don't do that again. Sit your behind over there and don't do that again. But you have a man who is mentally ill and homeless, and he has no way to get out of prison.
Mm-hmm. And the homeless man, right, had money to buy it back, right? Like, maybe he needed it, right? Maybe that was his defense, his weapon of choice. Being homeless, he had to keep all the other people from, to protect his stuff, right? But with the Rittenhouse thing, that's also interesting because they set up a GoFundMe for him. Remember, they set up a GoFundMe for him, made a bond. He made a whole bunch of money off. I think he actually shot 3 people and 2 of them died,
yes.
And then passed the police with the gun in his hand. And then was able to make it across straight lines and go all the way back home. And then got juvenile sanctions instead of being charged as an adult. All that happened.
So with January...
Jar practices in Broward County. Don't they direct file adult juveniles all the time? Adult court for violent offenses?
All the time.
And did they direct file the Black babies? They direct file them?
All the time. And furthermore, Black folk or most folk who are charged with murder aren't given a bond. There is no bond. You're held no bond until such time as your trial. So the fact that you keep seeing these police officers who murder Black folk, you see them with $1 million bond or $2 million bond, like the same guy we're talking about with George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
He shouldn't have had the ability to bond out. He should have been in custody. He should still be in custody, being held no bond.
Yep. All of them bonded out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the insurrection, sedition, coup d'etat.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. So whatever you want to label it
Americas is part of it because the
right.
two Americas is a part of this because people were confused. I don't see how you still confused about that.
And what I was going to say, I think what happened on January 6th wasn't a surprise to Black folk. I don't think it even was a surprise to other people of color. But what I think it was a surprise to are these white moderate people who stay quiet and complicit with the foolery, right? Because they were shocked. If you look at the news and some of the interviews afterwards, many of them were shocked, like, well, we could not believe that in the United States. Some of them were angry. You remember the one that you sent me the clip with Sandra, and he was like, you left the whatever expletive door open, and they were shocked. They just could not understand how this could happen. But ignorance is no excuse. I think my husband always tell me, ignorance to the law is no excuse, right? So ignorance to what's going around you, or maybe ignoring it like it'll go away, is no excuse. There, that we had the propensity to do that, to be in this position. Mm-hmm. Now the question becomes, after seeing this in January 6th, what changes, if anything? Not necessarily for Black folk, but for the white people that didn't believe that there was other white people that do stuff like that. Because, you know, since they all, what you call it than us.
Well, there are a bunch of people, non-Black people, who are already asking for this country to move along, to put this behind them, to unite and to move along. And so most other folk, however, are of the opinion of, yeah, we can move along after we hold some people accountable. But my thing is, you can hold all these other people accountable, all these people who stormed the Capitol. But to me, if you're not holding the person who incited this accountable, then, you know, it just looks like a joke.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No. Those elected officials, all those folks, and the whole idea of they're saying just want to move along and not address it at all. That's the part that's like, we can move along, but we need to talk about this, right? Like, you want to just like sweep it under the rug, act like it ain't happened, and tell me to just move along. No, you know why you want to move along? Because it's uncomfortable for you. Right? That's why they want to move along, because it's uncomfortable for them. I'm like, we've been living and existing in this discomfort the whole time, right? Like, so you can't do it's in your face now. You need to deal with this discomfort because they don't want to believe or accept the fact that, yeah, this element is in their midst, right? And then the other thing that was happening, you remember how Hillary was talking about the deplorables and everybody was like bashing her, like, oh my God, how can you say this about folks, right? And then when, you know, January 6th happened, there's like those damn deplorables, right? And I remember I was listening to one of the ladies on one of the networks, and she was talking about how like they are not Republicans, right? She's like, they are not Republicans. Republicans don't behave this way. I'm like, listen. We gotta take all the Black people, right? Like, we gotta take all of them, no matter what they do. We gotta take the good, the bad, the ugly, the ones we agree with, don't agree with, whatever. They Black. We gotta take ownership and take responsibility for all of them, right? Because they do that quick. Them yo people out there, right? So now all of a sudden, right, these people come on the storm the Capitol on January 6th, and now the Republican Party don't want them. A whole bunch of white people don't want them. No. Y'all gotta take them too. Don't And then when we try to like disown some of our own folks, then if y'all don't want them, then you can't make us take everybody that because we gotta take them all, right? Like, right. Gotta take responsibility for folks you don't even know, for stuff you would have never in your life even think about doing it. We bear all those scars, and we walk with all that weight every day. And then this woman gonna get on TV talking about they not Republicans. The hell they ain't. They was over there with a Republican president talking some Republican stuff. All right,
they got a whole Republican flag.
You understand? Come on. President still. Like, so.
And to your point, when you said that we have to take it on, we take it on. Just look at the system and how it's set up. We take responsibility for our bad apples, we pay the price.
Right.
So you should be able to pay the price too.
Darryl was talking about the experience of going into Broward County Courthouse. I go into that courthouse, I'm always somebody's mama. Right? Like, who are you here for? Who's your kid? Like, what? No, I'm not here as nobody's mother. I have a client here, right? But I walk in the room and I'm always somebody's mother, right? Like, I don't have no kids out here committing crimes. I mean, my kids are 11. Hopefully they never do this or whatever, but I'm not here to be with some kid. But because I'm a Black woman walking in the room, I got to take on all of the responsibility of all the other Black mamas that walks into that room. You know what I mean? Like, someone else will come in and they're like, who are you? Are you the lawyer? Are you this? Are you the interpreter? Whatever. They get a benefit of doubt. No, but I walk in the room and I'm somebody's mother here for my kid, because he done did some stuff that we gotta own. We have to take all of that, and they don't want to take on their little Republicans.
I guess not.
The 75 million that voted for this man to remain president. That's
number,
a lot of people.
Heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. That number's heartbreaking.
So tell us what's gonna happen, Jara. Are these charges gonna stick, or are they just doing it for show?
I think that some of the judges have already signaled that even if the charge is stuck, as you put it, that they're going to try to find some reason or some way to excuse the behavior. And when I say that, I mean they're going to give them some low sentence, some type of low sentence. You've already seen it with some of these people who I think there's even been at least one person that I remember reading about who was released on their own recognizance, I think from a court in Louisiana. So if these matters are prosecuted in DC, I think we're going to have a different result. I think we're going to have some of these folks are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent. And the federal laws are so strict. They have these mandatory minimums. So, some of these offenses, if they're felony offenses, they start off at 10 years. So the minimum you could get is 10 years, unless the judge finds some legal reason not to, the lawyer has to put forth that legal reason and the judge has to agree to that legal reason. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna prosecute 400 people or 1,000 people that, because I know I saw more than 400 people storm that Capitol. So I don't think they're going to prosecute all of them. And then of the ones they do prosecute, I don't know that all of them are going to, well, certainly all of them are not going to be prosecuted on the same level. Some of them are going to be prosecuted based on misdemeanor offenses. And in the country, the way it's supposed to run is that if you're a first-time offender, you're supposed to get the benefit of the doubt. You're supposed to get the more lenient sentence if you're a first-time offender. So I would expect that of some of these traders, although I may not like it, but that's what I expect. As a criminal defense lawyer, I expect that sort of treatment for every first offender. But like you said, Sandra, to your point, treat my people the same way too when they're first offenders. Give them the benefit of the doubt as well, right? And I think that's what you're seeing from Black folk. As you hit the nail on the head. It's not that we're saying treat these people harshly. It's not that we're saying shoot these people. It's not that we're saying kill these people. We're saying, the same way you treated them, treat us.
That's it. That's all we want. And the final question before we let go, I just want to ask: has there ever been a former president charged with a crime? And had a trial and been convicted. And the reason why I'm asking, is there any possibility that there could be a potential indictment of?
You said you got to get a Black woman to do it.
Yeah. I just don't. I'm honest. I'm just being honest with you. I just do not see. I do not see any non-Black female having the cojones to do that. I just don't see it. I don't see it from my white male counterparts. I don't see it from white female. I don't see it from anyone else. I don't see anyone else that will have what it takes to do something like that. So do I see that Donald Trump will be prosecuted for any of the crimes he committed? No, I don't see it happening.
All right. So she said it was the last one, but this is for real the last one, right? Because you said if it you can see them being prosecuted if it happens in DC. So the Attorney General in Washington DC is actually a Haitian man that was born in Port-au-Prince, grew up in the United States, Carl A. Racine. Does that change that maybe they will prosecute these folks fully?
So the reason I mentioned DC isn't because that I think that a Black U.S. attorney would prosecute them any more than a white U.S. attorney would. The reason I mention that is because I think that people in DC feel it more because it happened there and they were there. So that's why I say that I think if they're prosecuted in DC, I think that they're going to be prosecuted a little bit more true to the letter of the law than they would be prosecuted, let's say, in Louisiana or in Texas. So that's why I say that. Not because of that. I didn't even know the U.S. attorney in D.C. was a Black man.
Yeah, he's a Black man. He's an ICE. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the Haitian men tend to be very conservative. Don't forget about that.
Listen to what she's saying now. All right.
Exactly.
That's right. Oh, wow. Well, you know what, Jara, thank you so much for giving us points and information about how the law works and how it's supposed to work. I think it's very insightful for everybody to see. We're going to try to see if we can, show this video more than once so people can understand and do their own research, because we're all about you doing your own research on here. You don't just take what people say. You got to go do your own research, learn about the law. But it's also important that our goal, Sandra and I, our goal is to always try to make sure that people stay civically engaged. So when you mention about elected officials or people who run for office going to these churches and go to these places and talk about how they're going to do things for people, it's important that people learn about these candidates and these elected officials and hold them accountable. Right. I know that you referenced the churches a lot, because that is heart of communities. And, people really go to their churches and lean onto their churches for advice, resources, help in any kind of capacity. So it's important that, those who are clergymen or, people who are in the church, that when you see this, that everything is said in love. And also important that you are a beacon in your community. And when you allow certain people to come into your churches, just know that this is a reflection of what you think as well. Because, people say, oh, well, we just let anybody come in here. And that's not, they don't have the same ideology as us. We just allow everybody to come. But it's important you got to make sure who you let come in. It's just like in your home. You don't just let anybody come in your home. You got to vet everybody. So, I'm really glad that you brought that point, because it's very, very important that, people of the church background understand how much of an influence they have when they bring those type of people into their flock.
Right.
And I'm gonna just go with something that Jara said throughout this conversation, is that these judges, we need to hold them accountable. They get these seats. We got to pay attention on how they're sentencing folks, if they're really exhibiting that two Americas in their courtroom. And you implored the public defender's office to keep a running record of like how they're doing this, and then we need to hold them accountable. And if that two Americas is happening in their courtroom, then somebody needs to compete with them for their job. And we need to put it on blast for folks to know that you should not vote for this person that's really, treating people in their courtroom in a way that's very, very different, right? So yeah, that's the important thing. We got to be careful who we put in office. And then with these judges and these sentencing, what we're seeing right now, it's absolutely imperative that we make sure we have the right person, right judges in these cases. And if they're not treating people fairly, they gotta go. I mean, in the federal system is a little different because they have like lifetime appointments, but they can also get impeached though, right? You can impeach a judge. So because it's a lifetime appointment, that doesn't mean that if they do something crazy that you can't kick them out. But definitely on our local level, we gotta be vigilant and stay on top of what these folks are doing in these courtrooms, because they're out here ruining people.
Speaking of impeachment, let's not forget that the wife of Supreme Court Judge Uncle Clarence. Right. I'm sorry. What's the name? I'm sorry. Yes, Clarence Thomas. She was also providing aid and assistance to folks to come to the Capitol to riot. So how is he not being impeached?
You understand?
Right? Because because as far as I'm concerned, we've only had one Black Supreme Court judge.
You understand?
So that's so that dude, he needs to go. He needs to go.
Notorious for doing like crazy stuff. She runs an extremely conservative think tank, right? Like she was part of a extremely conservative think tank, and she's always just doing something. You just like, lady, are you serious? And for her to be a part of that, and for him to like not even denounce it, don't have a problem with it, just letting her just do the nonsense.
Now, if she was an aider and abetter, she should be prosecuted.
Absolutely. As well. I'm here.
So that's a story for another day.
Is that not what she did, aiding and abetting? That's what I thought.
Exactly. Now, had it been Sandra Shafer who had bought bus tickets and all this other stuff for people to go to the Capitol and riot, you best believe she'd be getting
but like you said, Sandra
on her door.
Do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, but I mean, Black people ain't doing stupidness like that.
Let's just hope a Black attorney is watching, a Black woman attorney is watching, and she decides that she wants to go ahead and file charges against Thomas.
There is one other thing I wanted to point out as far as local elections are concerned. Let's not forget that in Broward County, we have our first Black prosecutor. Matter of fact, this is the only prosecutor that we've had in Broward County since 1970 something, other than Michael J. Satz. So
40 years.
So he needs a lot of support, and he's going to need a lot of support because he's going to be challenged at every stage of this game by the police unions. If he decides that he's going to actually treat the law equally, and he's going to prosecute police officers the same as he prosecutes other folks who are non-police officers, he's going to need that level of support. He's going to need community support. But by the same measure, we also have to hold Mr. Pryor accountable if we start to see him going the way of Daniel Cameron in Kentucky. We need to be like,
You better not.
So, we need to be aware of that as well. We need to be aware of how he performs, and we need to support him where he needs support. And then if he starts to pull away from what we thought he was going to do, we need to pull him back in.
Pull him back in with a sprinkle of love. We're gonna pull him right back in. I'm hoping, and I really truly believe that Harold will follow through with all his campaign platforms. And we do need to support him, Jara. We do need to make sure that he knows that we're here and that we're here to support him. And I just hope as time progresses, he's able to fulfill some of his campaign promises. And then, we'll gently nudge him if we have to. We're going to give him some time. We're not going to be like these people who's demanding Biden, get them their
COVID in 2 days
for their student debt and all that other stuff. Where my student debt? Now, why you ain't sending
it out? You get with it.
Right. There's a lot of people who are like doing that. We got to give people time to get where they need to be. But I'm glad you said that we need to hold him accountable too, because just because he's Black doesn't mean he get a pass. Right. It just means that
in Broward County.
What?
Wakanda in Broward County, all the elected officials, all the constitutional offices in Broward County are held by Black people.
That's right. That's right. And I truly believe we're going to see a difference in Broward County. I really believe that.
So I know we're going to go. I know we're extending this, but that's another thing too that I wanted to bring up is that the chairman of the Democratic Party here in Broward County is Rick Hoy, who's Black male, and I had this conversation with him I think last Saturday, and one of the things I was saying to him is that we can't. Broward doesn't control this, but at the state level, the new head of the Democratic Party, I believe of the Florida Democratic Party, is a Cuban guy, right, from South Florida, Miami. And I don't know his policies. I don't know his politics. So I won't speak on that. But what I do know is these milquetoast candidates that they've been pushing on us. I think the guy's name was Patrick Murphy. Was that his name that they try to push on us? And then the other guy who used to be Charlie Crist, they pushed him over the long established Democrat Meek. Black people are not going to come out and vote for these people. And like it or not, you need us. So give us something that we can believe in. Give us someone who's going to call out, like what I like to call the Batista Cuban regime down in South Florida. Someone who's going to call out the fact that, all of that money we're spending to give them welfare in South Florida, we could be using to supplement our teachers' income in South Florida. So, we really need someone to step up and to really talk up, because I think Rubio is defeatable in South Florida, but we don't need a milquetoast candidate. I think in South Florida, an AOC style candidate would be successful, whereas an AOC candidate might not be successful in North Florida.
Right.
I think in South Florida, an AOC style candidate would be successful. But if you're going to give us these milquetoast candidates,
for sure,
for
sure, you're absolutely right.
It's not going to work.
Somebody we could work with, like give us something we can work with, something that we're kind of like
willing to fight that socialist narrative, right? Because that killed. I mean, they lost. Dade County lost all their reps. They lost all their U.S. reps and their Florida reps in the Florida Senate race because they were calling them socialists and they were too scared to say something like "the hell I am." You know what I mean? Or if I am, so what? So is Walmart and all those other big corporations in America and the airlines that had to get money as soon as COVID hit. because they were going to go out of business, right? So what are you talking about, right? So we do need people that are going to speak, that's going to speak up like that, you know, and fight that narrative. And if they're going to own it, just own it properly and tell the truth about what's really going on here.
Right, right.
Well,
Because we need Rubio to be out. We need Rick Scott to be out.
You gotta go, and DeSantis. You gotta go.
And DeSantis,
They all got to go. And to put you at some, I mean, if you look at the rest of the board, Jaira, there is a good amount of people of color. Like there's about 2 or 3 Black people on there. And you know, we'll get the list, but we need to reach out to those people that are on his board to make sure that the influence that they are giving is something that, you know, make sure that we don't fall into the cracks or whatever, because, you know, this Diaz gentleman, I believe, used to be a Republican way back in the day.
Well, you know how it goes, man. Even in Broward County, we have a lot of Democrats who were Republican.
Yeah,
sure.
they just said to win.
So exactly, and I mean, you could look at the city of Fort Lauderdale, and you could see the city of Fort Lauderdale supposedly the Democrats on the dais, but when you see some of their policies and how they execute it and where they execute it, you know, it leaves you scratching your head. Like if you didn't know, if your eyes were closed and you didn't know, you'd be thinking, okay, this is a Republican stronghold.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, everybody. See, you thought you was only going to talk to us for an hour. See, we interesting.
We try to make it fun, you know.
You're interesting. And you didn't even realize you were sitting out here, but like, it's been an hour, 30 minutes I was talking to you.
He probably has a whole bunch of work to do, poor thing.
The stack is high, you know. Did you at least
blame you, Sandra? I blame you.
Go home. All righty.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate all your time.
All right. Thank you. Take care.